morning. You're listening to Central Wisconsin's 24-hour information station, AM 1320 WFHR. It's time now for the Morning Magazine, brought to you by Comfort Air Heating, Cooling, Plumbing. Now, with the Morning Magazine, here's Carl Hilke.
Thank you, Jerry, and good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's show on AM 1320 and streaming live at WFHR.com. We also welcome our friends from RCCA Media. They're here digitally recording us for later broadcast on your local public access cable channel, depending on your system, or you can go to their website and see it in high definition at RCCA Media. Now, with the reason they're here is it's time for a Wood County Board update, or Wood County update from Wood County Board Chairman Lance Pliml, and we had planned, or you had planned, to have some very special guests, but they must be busy.
Yeah, they might be tied up in court. First of all, thank you for having me, Carl.
Okay.
Second of all, we were going to have our district attorney here and one of the representatives from the Public Defender's Office to talk about our Wood County Adult Drug Treatment Court, which is alternatives to sending people to jail, which has been costly and ineffective over time. We need to change behaviors. It's been a tremendous burden to the taxpayer, the cost that has incurred. We know for 50 years we've had no luck doing it the way we were, so we've tried a little different tact, and we've been doing this for a number of years. We were one of the pilot programs. We have seen some success. As most of you know, we have a growing drug problem in the area. And it's something that we were hoping they could address. And I'm hoping they show up yet. They're probably stuck in court or with some intake hearings or something else.
Yeah, and that's totally understandable. But let's talk about last week. It was 50th anniversary of the Wisconsin State Water Ski Show Tournament. And first day, during the individual competition, we get clobbered with a major severe thunderstorm and damage and everything else. And I know you wanted to send out some thank yous to folks that really stepped up in that horrible situation.
It was pretty unbelievable. It is the single biggest event that occurs in this city, in this area. Takes place in our South Wood County Park. And we had a tremendous storm come through, not just the park, but Port Edwards, Nakusa, and some other areas that day, took down a number of trees. The damage out at the park, right at the water ski site, was extensive. And I'm talking trees that were 30-plus inches in diameter were just twisted off and broken. And we had hundreds, if not thousands, of people out there during that event. First of all, luckily, nobody was injured.
That's what I'm so happy for.
It's unbelievable because we had a couple of cars just absolutely crushed, to the ground. The wind picked up a probably 600-700-pound stainless steel staircase and threw it over the top of a semi. Just amazing damage. I heard one of the judges told me a cinder block came flying through the air, hit her in the elbow and took the knob off the door of the building she was trying to get in. So that gives you some perspective of how big that storm was. But that's when Wisconsin Rapids, the residents, the people here really came through. One call to the Parks Department and one call to emergency government, and I cannot give enough kudos to Chad Schooley at our Parks Department and all of his employees, and to Steve Cruiser in emergency government. The response to those phone calls was unbelievable. We had, and the skiing community itself who helped. We had more people out there ready to help and ready to go and put that site back in order than we could actually use. We were sending people away.
Yeah, I got a Nixle alert saying, we do not need any more people. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and if you saw the damage out there, every tent down, just a mess, trees everywhere. And they got those down. They brought in end loaders, skid steers, dump trucks, people with chainsaws. And they cleaned that up. And by Thursday evening at 9 o'clock, everything was pretty set. By Friday morning, full speed ahead with the tournament. And again, kudos to our Parks Department, emergency government, the Grand Rapids Police Department, and volunteer fire departments. I'm going to leave somebody out. The aqua skiers and all those residents of Wood County who just came out to help. I think it's a real tribute. And it's one of the reasons that we have been selected to host the World Tournament. I've said it over and over. It's the people of this community. It's their resilience. And you can see that whether it be an instance like this or as we've downsized in the paper mills and had to come up with other ways to foster some economic development. It's been tremendous. And again, tremendous tournament put on. The aqua skiers with the Wood County Parks Department did an outstanding job, extremely well attended. The heat was somewhat unbearable during some of that time, and yet they handled those. They handled the exhaustion issues. We have medical personnel out there. Tremendous effort.
What about overall? Like you mentioned, it tore into Wood County. I was here doing breaking in with storm reports with Weather Center, and it started off like a normal line of thunderstorms. And then all of a sudden blew up into this ball of red that covered all of Wood County.
It was unbelievable. I was, it's kind of funny. I was pulling out of town that morning, and I was right ahead of the morning storm. And I could see it behind me. By the time I got to Green Lake, I had a meeting down there. Some branches were coming down off of trees, and I was kind of dodging them as I was driving. And I'm thinking, well, the storm's over. The conference I was at ended at about 3:30, 4 o'clock, and I headed back, and I got a call from the ski site from Jason Sachs with the Aqua Skiers, their show director. He said, Lance, this place is a disaster. And immediately got a call from my wife saying this storm is unbelievable. It called the Parks Department and got everybody activated. But it was somewhat confined to certain areas, but the damage it did in both, like I said, Port Edwards and Nakusa, I understand, out in the Pittsville area to some extent, it seemed to, kind of hop and skip around a little bit because the campground, for instance, at the park wasn't really touched. The area up at Red Sand Beach was devastated, and if you went out to 80th Street, there was no damage. You had damage in Nakusa in places, but the response, again, countywide by all of those departments, just tremendous to get that cleaned up. And I know we made a request for some dollars to assist in that cleanup. I don't know if we'll see those forthcoming or not, but it's always worth asking.
Well, yeah.
While we're on that, I want to touch on one other thing, and that is, the tournament itself was great, but congratulations again to the Aqua Skiers.
That's right. They won again. They won their division.
The state championship this year. After last year's, they moved up a division and won the national championship last year, having moved up a division. And I think they're going to go and compete again at the national tournament in, I think it's Warsaw, Indiana, about August 5th, 6th, somewhere in that vicinity. Congratulations to all of you. The effort put forth by the volunteer clubs that help out there with cooking and running stuff, the logistics, unbelievable again to host that many people.
And like you said, fortunately, no severe injuries outside of maybe some scrapes and stuff like that. But
nobody hurt. Sean Becker from our sheriff's department was telling me he was standing under this giant oak tree, and all of a sudden he heard a crack, and they started running. They evacuated up to the stone shelter up there. If you go to the videos online, and I've seen a number of those in different places, and look at the size of the trees that came down, and the tons of wood in every one of those, and really not a scratch with any individual out there. The ham radio operators who responded immediately started making announcements. Again, community effort.
Well, that's it. We can talk a little bit about this drug court from the budget standpoint. You mentioned that this is the adult drug court is an effort to try a different approach to the problem with drug abuse. I had Senator Baldwin here last week, did an interview with her, and you and I have talked about this. It all goes to the pain management. That's how people got hooked on this stuff. Then they started cracking down on that, and heroin slipped in. And so it's a multifaceted problem that we have to deal with. And I guess the drug court here is an effort to try a different approach, because locking up and throwing away the key doesn't, and it ends up costing the county a lot of money.
There's been a drug problem for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
We've had a burgeoning problem, especially with the heroin addiction recently, and that is a direct line to the opioid addiction problem, and a cheaper way, to have a mind-numbing, pain-killing drug.
Right.
So for many, many years, we arrest, we incarcerate, they're out. We arrest, we incarcerate, they're out, and the cost to both the sheriff's department, the police departments, the court system, the district attorney's office, and then social services that follows. When those people end up incarcerated, we're typically supporting those people when they come out and or their families. So a number of years ago, we said, we've got to try something different. It's that old adage, if you keep doing the same thing over and over and expect a different result, that's insanity.
Right.
So we've tried something, and we've been pretty successful with that program, and we continue to find better ways to do things. The resources have somewhat the state has expanded the dollars to the program, but as other counties have seen the value of the program, and I've had the opportunity to speak at a couple of the state conferences in regard to this, as they've seen the success, more counties have applied for that pot of money, and it becomes a little bit tougher to get. In fact, the last time I spoke at one of those, I encouraged all counties not to apply because Wood County would like more money, but nonetheless they did. So we have a shrinking pot of money there, and at some point we probably look to the taxpayer as we reallocate tax levy to find a better, more effective, cost-effective way of doing things and a better outcome. If we have a lifelong addiction problem with an individual, we are handling them in the courts, the public safety arenas, and social services, human services, forever. So, as we bring these people in, they're presented to the program typically by their defense attorney. There's a criteria they go through. There's an assessment. And the process is actually much more difficult than just going and spending your time in jail. These are people that typically really do want to make a change and can't. There are a number of people that through the program just say, lock me up for my sentence and let me out, because it really is easier. These people get drug tested, some daily, and when your color is called, there's a coding system. You are expected to be there basically immediately. And that means whether you're at work, whether you're at home, whatever the situation. And the process usually, I don't have the statistics in front of me, but I'm guessing that it usually takes between a year and 2 years to get through the program, and usually the sentence is shorter. But at the end of the day, if they're successful, we return them to being productive citizens in the community.
That's the important thing. You save a life.
You save a life, and you typically save a family's life.
Right.
Because as you look, many of them are, they can be married, they have children. It affects more than just the individual. It affects the whole family. And it took a tremendous effort by the judges, the district attorney's office, law enforcement, the public defender's office, the drug court team. On any given Monday, there's probably 15 plus people in the room, highly educated experts in every one of those fields as we work through treatment programs and eventual graduation from the program.
Yeah, and basically they're going through treatment during that time, so they're getting off the drug that got them in trouble in the first place, and getting their life in order, and hopefully getting a job, and so that when they like you say, when they get off the program or graduate from the program, if nothing else, can you use the successful ones? Can you use them as mentors?
Absolutely, and that's one of the keys of the program. It's worked out well, and it's extremely difficult. The mentoring side of it is huge. Mm-hmm. And the program is not just about ending the addiction. It's ending that lifestyle.
Right.
In many cases, severing those acquaintances that you had that contributed to that lifestyle. It's educating them as to how to live a better life. And some of that is employment, financial responsibility, personal responsibility, and all those things that go with being a productive member of society. And obviously, most of this is HIPAA-protected information.
Sure.
And I can't talk about individuals, but, we have them from all walks of life. The perpetually addicted person who you've seen who's really been unemployed their whole life, to people in the medical profession.
We probably got it. Their easy access to oxycodone.
Yeah. And it goes from there. And if you can return those people to their previous life, mm-hmm. And then bring those other people along who've never really had a chance, it's been productive. It's been good, and I think that we'll continue to see progress in that area. And I think at some point we'll see an alcohol treatment court to deal with.
I was going to ask you about that.
And right now we are starting with a veterans court to deal with those veterans who specifically have issues in these areas, because the treatment alternative has tended to work. The arrest, incarcerate, release.
It doesn't work.
It's catch and release is what it is, basically.
Yeah.
And it's a revolving door, and that's what we're trying to end.
Okay. Since these programs are showing their value, from your standpoint from the State Counties Association, might not this be something that the legislature and the governor and everybody should be, hey, let's allocate more money to these type of programs instead of the lock them up and throw them away. Let's put more money into these type of programs which have been proven to work.
It is, and it has. And the legislature has listened. The amount of money that has been thrown into the pot to increase spending in that area has been significant.
Okay.
The problem probably grows quicker, or that method of treatment probably grows quicker than the amount of money that's being allocated. But, in our county, we still get the vast majority of the money in state grants. I think we're responsible for about 25% of the funding for that program. As you get more participants, though, the need for more money exists. And we have, right now, we provide treatment in Wisconsin Rapids and Marshfield, because transportation, like anything else, if you're arrested for an OWI charge or a drug charge, typically you also don't have a driver's license.
That's right.
So getting to and from those appointments is important. We don't have a lot of public transportation in Wood County. So the more places that we can provide that service, the better off we are in the long run.
One of the things Senator Baldwin mentioned, and the reason why she went up to Wausau was to be at a treatment center there where they have like 100-person waiting list. I mean, these treatment centers, we need to have more treatment centers because there's more people needing treatment. That's another facet of the problem. And how are we in Wood County for dealing with that?
You're right, and dollars are typically the limiting factor. You have to have enough dollars, because this isn't just, we take away your drug of choice. There's mental health people on this side. There are those addiction specialists. Oftentimes we have inpatient treatment for these people. We need places to send them while they break that addiction and those habits. The better, and this sounds funny, but the better the program gets, the more success you have, in this case, the bigger the program tends to become, because it is an alternative to that lock-em-up revolving door. And as success is seen, more people opt in that direction. I think we'll see the state and the federal government continue in that direction. Building jails is expensive. I can usually get the public to buy into the fact that, we need good highways and we need good schools. And even if we're talking in a local standpoint here in Wisconsin Rapids, we probably need a pool from economic development standpoint. When you talk about building more jails, the attitude typically is they got themselves in trouble. I really don't care what how great the housing is. That's their problem. It was self-inflicted.
But they don't understand the costs.
They don't understand. Yeah, and it's the cost. So, we're constantly looking at what's the most cost-effective way to handle this in the long run. And then you tie that into the public safety side of that. Typically with some of the drug addiction comes some crime. And, when people don't have enough dollars to fuel that addiction, that's when we see, if nothing else, at least those burglaries, robberies, petty theft kind of things. And often those morph into something much more serious. Okay,
so it's one of these things, multifaceted. It's a whole gamut of things. But I think the public needs to understand that this is an effort to actually solve the problem instead of just, like you said, catch and release, which is just so expensive.
Yeah, and it fits into that whole thing, that whole program, that whole thought process of, I try to treat, and I think our whole board does, try to treat that pool of money that we have from a tax revenue standpoint or from a shared revenue standpoint as if it were your own. And what's most cost effective, and then you prioritize the issues. And we've talked about this before. For most people in our county, public safety, and across the nation, I just came back from the national conference late last night, public safety is number one.
Right.
Whether you be a citizen or whether you be a law enforcement officer out there, when you walk out your door, you want to know that you're safe and that you're coming home tomorrow. That's number one. Number two, we tend to talk about infrastructure. Roads, bridges, telecommunications, broadband build out, those types of things. And then it goes down to other issues below that. But you prioritize, you look at what's the available dollars, where are they best spent, and how do I do the best job. I think in Wood County we've done a real good job with being extremely fiscally responsible over the years. Our philosophy has been the money left in your pocket. I hear people often say, why don't you tax more and save the money, and when you want to do a project, you have it. Our philosophy has been, it's better in your pocket till we absolutely need it. And then if I can prove the need, that you'll probably buy into that, as opposed to I'm going to take your money, I'm going to
And trust me, I'm
going. Trust me, someday we're going to spend it wisely.
Yeah, no, I don't think. I would say 99.9% of taxpayers would rather, hey, keep the money. If you need it, then make your case.
Yeah, make your case, and we do it on a case by case basis. And you elect those people. your county board supervisors, your local officials, to make those decisions. And they're difficult decisions at times. I get people mad at me sometimes when they say, why won't you just allocate more staff or more dollars here? And I say, well, who do I take it away from? It's not like we got a whole bunch of money over here we're not using. If I apply it in one area, then I'm taking away from either the human services aspect, the veterans, from the mental health side, from the sheriff's department. If I put on an extra person in land conservation, then I can't put on somebody in the sheriff's department. If I put on somebody in each of those, I can't put somebody on in the highway department. So to some extent, it's not a game, but it's almost like a shell game.
Mm-hmm.
It's where do we spend the money to get the most bang for a buck? And you try not to govern from a sense of crisis, but a lot of what we do is crisis, and it's the emergent situation. The difficult part is the long-range planning. Where are we going to be 4 or 5 years from now?
Yeah, I was going to ask you, doing all this, how does that affect long-range planning? That's to make something sustainable, to make sure that what's happening is working, that you're solving problems and not just juggling.
Shuffling, yeah. And we're looking at that. That's one of the things we look at in drug court. As state funding goes away, how do we fund that locally? Because we see the importance of that program. It's that old adage, if it bleeds, it leads in the press. And so we tend to govern crisis to crisis. And the problem is, in the news cycle, good news, progress, those things that take a long time, tend to get buried on the back page. And people don't see that. Or they don't take the time to look at that.
Or follow the issue long enough.
Follow the issue long enough, because it gets swept, or ends up on the back burner. There are a lot of positive things happening, not only in Wood County, but right down here where we're talking in Wisconsin Rapids. We're seeing growth. We're seeing diversification. All of those things are happening. And the most difficult thing when you sit in our chairs as elected officials is having people say, I want it exactly how it was. It can't be how it was. It's a never-ending, fluid world we live in, and it has to change.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, you can't isolate yourself from the rest of the world. For business, certainly can't, because business is international. That's just the nature of the game, and that's the world. And with the social communication and everything else, look at you just flew back from California, and so moving forward. I guess pretty soon it'll be budget time.
We're in that process already. Started really in June.
Okay.
Working forward, budget parameters, letters went out to departments, which basically said, hold your spending where you had it last year. We've allocated some dollars to some of the major projects we're doing with the roads and with the acquisition of the River Block building, which will take us at least in the next generation and a half from that perspective. The budget seems to be a never-ending situation. I'm extremely lucky, and we have Mike Martin as our finance director. He's extremely talented, somebody that I rely on, and I know our whole board on a daily basis. If you talk to finance directors and accountants, though, Mike, if you're listening, I always hear the sky is falling, and usually we're probably on the precipice. But year in, year out, he provides tremendous guidance through that process. The individual committees bring forth budgets that are workable. If you tell a department, I like to budget in this respect. There's X number of dollars, Mr. or Mrs. Miss Department Head. Make it work. Instead of micromanaging and telling them, what we think is better, because you need to take a step back as a policymaker. Say, we set the policy, and the policy is, for instance, we want a safe community. Get it done. You decide where you want to allocate those dollars that we have available. And our people have done a great job.
I was going to say, let the people with the expertise use that expertise to spend the money wisely. Okay. Well, a very interesting discussion. I'll let you get back to work. Hopefully, maybe in the future, we can get Craig and Emily in here and talk about in more detail drug court.
We will, and I'm sure something came up.
I'm sure it is.
They were begging me to come on here today,
okay.
and then they didn't make it.
Okay. Well, tell them the offer is still there. Okay.
Thanks, Carl.
Hey, have a great weekend. That's Wood County Board Chairman Lance Pliml, and that wraps up part one of today's edition of the Morning Magazine on AM 1320 and WFHR.com. We also thank our friends at RCCA Media for being here.